Hello again, I'm Chuck Todd, and welcome to another edition of Meet the Press Reports. Today we're going to take a deep dive into the topic of AI, artificial intelligence. And with that in mind, I should clarify that, yes, I'm the real Chuck Todd, not some AI-generated avatar, although we have those for you this episode. By all indications, artificial intelligence is getting exponentially more intelligent and powerful. And it has the potential to do good, like revolutionizing cancer detection. But it also poses great perils, both in the long term and right now, as it's rolled across society. This is the fledgling and deeply controversial state of AI in 2023. It's a world of possibility and optimism, if you believe the people who are making it, and fear and dread, even from some people inside the industry. And some of that fear has to do with how social media went. We were pretty optimistic about that, and look where it led us. So joining me now is Jacob Ward. He's been covering the emergence of AI, and now, Jacob, it's the be-all, end-all. This was sort of a pet project of yours.
I know.
And here we are.
It was speculative when I began, and now it is no longer that. Now, for this installment, we wanted to ask this question. I mean, as we let this technology creep into our lives, we want to look into the people behind it. Why do they seem so convinced that we should treat this technology like some sort of god, that we should hand some of our most important decisions to it? Is it a way to save humanity from itself, or are we risking the downfall of society by experimenting with it so quickly?
AI has burst into our imagination, our culture, and our daily lives. Because after decades of trying, companies have learned to train it very quickly on huge amounts of our data. And now it can do battle with customer service agents.
$100. We went from a $20 discount to a $100 discount in seconds.
Even as the creator of the technology, sometimes I'm surprised.
Create digital remixes of human creativity.
The godlike power to commission any artist in history.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
And even catch a glimpse of our thoughts.
Wow, so as long as I have seen it and you know the patterns of my brain, then the AI will read that out of my brain.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
AI advocates like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt says it all has tremendous potential.
Getting better materials, solving climate change, managing our energy systems better. There's a lot of reason to think that this technology can do all of that.
And already it does miraculous things. At Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Dr. John Pestian and Dr. Tracy Glauser are training their own AI to head off suicide in children. It can give a pediatrician an at-a-glance sense of which kids need immediate intervention.
An output will say this is a patient at high risk, this is a patient at low risk, or we just don't have enough data right now.
Roughly 30 to 40% of mental illness, adult mental illness, started as a child. And so you want to be able to pick that up early.
They spent millions on building and training it by pouring electronic medical records, records of doctors' visits, even suicide notes through it.
What had most value in prediction and classification is the ratio of nouns to pronouns, because those that aren't suicidal are those that will use the word I more often than those who are suicidal and they don't refer to themselves.
So if in the language of the suicide note they refer to things other than themselves more often, they're more likely to commit suicide.
Exactly.
Now, that project is pretty amazing. A custom-made, expert-built, potentially life-saving artificial intelligence. But that is the exception. It's not the norm. The AI that you are most likely to encounter in your life is built by a handful of for-profit companies using data you never realized they were collecting. And increasingly, it makes decisions about things that are really important to you, whether you know it or not.
Life and death decisions are being made by automated decision-making systems, and they're determining people's access to government support for housing, food, medical care.
University of Baltimore law professor Michelle Gilman and her students help people fight for benefits that have been wrongly denied them. And increasingly, she finds out that algorithms bought from a secretive company are at fault.
I've been in hearings where no one in the room can describe for me, how does the algorithm work? What factors does it weigh? How does it weigh those factors? And so you're really left unable to make a case for your client in those circumstances.
You're in this sort of Kafka-esque loop in which there is nobody making a decision and no one who is in theory in charge of making decisions has any idea how the decision was made.
Right. But yet at the same time, many of the decision makers, the judges, give undue deference to the automated system because they think it's a computer. It's mathematical. It must be right.
Gilman says that once upon a time when people could come into an office like this one to get things sorted, there were problems, sure.
The potential for harm is just much greater when these flaws are embedded in algorithmic systems.
The invisible power structures we are assembling by accident and on purpose have the potential to change not just individual lives, but the very future of humanity.
This isn't intelligence. This is basically a sort of warped mirror of what's on the internet for the last 20 years.
Meredith Whitaker was an early AI researcher at Google. She left after leading walkouts over military contracts and Google's handling of executive misconduct. Google made several changes to its products and policies after the outcry. But Whitaker says it's the issues around AI that worry her most.
What it really is a probabilistic engine designed to spit out things that seem plausible based on a prediction of, how this should look, that is based on massive, massive amounts of, effectively surveillance data that has been scraped from the web.
Today, she's the president of the anonymous messaging app Signal, part of what she says is an effort to cut off the data fuel supply of AI. She says that the same companies who collected data on all of us without any regulation for the last 20 years are using it to now build AI, again without regulations.
Let's be real. There are only a handful of companies in the world that have that combination of data and infrastructural power capable of creating what we're calling AI from nose to tail.
What is the shortcoming of there being this very small number of models upon which a whole ecosystem is theoretically going to be built?
Well, I think it's the danger of concentrated power. And it's the danger of a concentrated power that has extraordinary ability to shape our social and political landscape. We are now in a position where, this, I would say, overhyped technology is being created, distributed, refined, calibrated, and ultimately shaped to serve the economic interests of these same handful of actors.
Whitaker says there is nothing innately socially positive about a system sold as a replacement for human judgment and built for profit.
So the idea that this is going to sort of magically become a source of social good, or that this is a, kind of a natural substance that all of us have the ability to use equally, and hey, teachers will be using it, and students will be using it, and nonprofits will be using it, is simply not true. That's a fantasy used to market these programs.
So who are these people making AI, and why are they doing it? What do they believe about the future? If AI has the potential to make everything more efficient, but also poses the risk of making it such that we can't do things any other way, why do they think that gamble is worth it?
The creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, declined to speak with us. But he has spoken openly about his desire to build not just AI, but AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence, a theoretical future technology in which AI truly thinks for itself and surpasses human intelligence. Altman ruminated openly on this podcast about his enormous optimism and ambition when it comes to AI.
I hate to sound like utopic tech bro here, but if you'll excuse me for 3 seconds, like the level of the increase in quality of life that AI can deliver is extraordinary. We can make the world amazing.
And his company, now part of Microsoft, says it wants to go far beyond chatbots, recently writing, "Our mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence, AI systems that are generally smarter than humans, benefits all of humanity." Some in the AI community were appalled. They think they are positioned to decide what benefits all of humanity, wrote one prominent University of Washington professor. The topmost people at AI companies tend to say they believe they are building something world-changing.
I'm extremely excited about what's going to happen, because when these things are 10 and 100 times larger, they're going to be much more useful in terms of solving the problems of the world today.
Climate change,
human
conflict.
Scientists, new strategies, new ideas. They will write poetry in great ways. They will inspire humans.
Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt has been an advisor or boss to Altman and other top U.S. AI builders.
Do you feel like, is the community of AI leaders that you're part of also in agreement on what the potential is in the future, AGI and the rest of it?
Yeah, they differ on time.
Schmidt, like Whitaker, says that the number of companies capable of building true standalone AI systems is very small.
I think eventually there'll be 20 or 30 such groups spread around the world. I don't really know. Today there are roughly 4 or 5, depending on how you count. The models that they're training are $50 to $100 million a copy, literally the training.
And at the moment, that small group enjoys little regulation or oversight and no meaningful public input as to whether this technology should be deployed.
The key issue from my perspective is how do we put guardrails on the worst behaviors and how do we get international agreement on what those things are?
But he says that with certain industry-crafted guardrails in place, the companies making these systems are the ones that should be trusted to figure it all out.
My concern with any kind of premature regulation, especially from the government, is it's always written in a restrictive way. What I'd much rather do is have an agreement among the key players that we will not have a race to the bottom.
You've described the need for guardrails, and what I've heard from you is we should not put restrictive regulations from the outside, certainly from policymakers who don't understand it. I have to say, I don't hear a lot of guardrails around the industry in that. It really just, as I'm understanding it from you, comes down to what the industry decides for itself.
When this technology becomes more broadly available, which it will, and very quickly, the problems are going to get much worse. I would much rather have the current companies define reasonable boundaries.
It shouldn't be a regulatory framework. It maybe shouldn't even be a sort of a democratic vote. It should be the expertise within the industry helping sort that out.
The industry will first do that because there's no way a non-industry person can understand what is possible. It's just too new, too hard, there's not the expertise. There's no one in the government who can get it right. But the industry can roughly get it right, and then the government can put a regulatory structure around it.
Well, Jake, that was it's a pretty arrogant answer there, Dan. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to react to that.
Yep.
That I'm sorry, nobody in government, you won't understand what we're doing, so you don't have any input. Boy, that is. I know Eric Schmidt a little bit. I think if you push him, you'd be like, well, I don't mean it that way, but it certainly comes across it like, you stay out of our business.
You know, I would say that what he said there is an earnest belief that it really does boil down to expertise. I think he does not believe that they have the expertise in government to really get involved in this. It's certainly at this stage. But I will say that across the spectrum of experts that I have spoken to, that is one of the major concerns, that there is a exclusion of other people from the decision-making process because only the people that can afford a $100 million per copy technology should be in charge of a thing that will affect us all.
So something that I have been working out in my own head is this. I think we're all doing the skeptical approach to AI because we didn't with social media. And I say collectively as a society. How much of this are we over? Is there possible people like you and I and the skeptics, are we overcorrecting because of, oh my goodness, we didn't have any of that input? Or is this the right reaction?
Well, what's so interesting is that, Eric Schmidt, in speaking to me there, he said it to me and he said it to many people before, that he says that he was naive about social media back in the day.
So how do we trust him now?
And yet he believes that he, has some sense of how we should proceed. What all of the people that I've been speaking to agree on, whether they are for or against the AI moment we are in, is that it is the unfettered access to data that fuels all of this. And part of what that is going to do is create the same little coterie of very powerful companies that collected data on us for the last 20 years. They're going to be in charge of AI for the foreseeable future.
The internet didn't have this. There wasn't a feeling that only one company controlled the internet.
Well, that's right, because
I think with AI it's so much different. It does feel as if it's a handful of companies that have this control. The internet felt like we all had a piece of it.
Well, that is because the internet was in fact created for the benefit. At the time, it was a military invention, but it was built inside the government, and the people who refined it were academics. Here, we're talking about something that was once upon a time, at least in theory, academic, but it has really hit the road only when for-profit companies put billions of dollars behind it. I would argue that it's one of the first times in human history that something that's going to affect us as deeply as anything ever has is entirely in the hands of the people who are poised to make money off it.
Boy, an important point to end on there. Jacob Ward, I know you've been passionately following this for almost a decade now. Here's the moment. Let's see if we survive it.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. And I want to note that Jake has been covering this issue for some time. He's written a book on it. You should take a look at it. It's called The Loop: How Technology is Creating a World Without Choices and How to Fight Back. When we come back, AI is offering the possibility of letting us live forever, at least in Hollywood. And a new movie starring an AI-generated James Dean could be coming to a theater near you, and sooner than you think. Is this a good idea? Stay with us. Welcome back. Immortalizing our icons isn't new. Madame Tussauds Wax Museum and holographic concerts are proof of that. But what if we could actually talk to these people? Well, joining me now are two people working on just that. Travis Cloyd, he's CEO and co-founder of Worldwide XR, is a global futurist focused on technologies around AI, machine learning, and more. He's currently working on the film Back to Eden, which will feature a digital human named James Dean. That James Dean. Also joining me is Kathleen Haas, former USC, from the USC Institute of Creative Technologies, Vision and Graphics Lab, where she's focusing on AI-generated virtual humans. And her work, by the way, is primarily funded by the Department of Defense. We will ask her about that. So Travis and Kathleen, welcome to Meet the Press Reports. And Kathleen, let me start with a little bit of a vocabulary lesson. So there's, before AI became such a buzzword in the last 6 months, deep fakes was something. Is there what's the difference between a deep fake and an AI-generated human?
Well, a deep fake is a 2D, it's a 2D technique, and it is embedded in video, and it's very effective. We've seen a number of them. They look very cool. But the AI-based approach to face replacement is a different process. It is a CG face, and in our lab we do a sort of a hybrid approach where we take, we have a morphable model that's developed from numerous light stage scans, and that gives us all the reflectance data, which means we can relight the skin. And then we marry that with the highest resolution 4D video that you can find, and you can do a little encoding and decoding over here, and a little machine learning encoding, decoding over there, secret sauce, mix it together, and then you output this pretty fantastic looking photorealistic AI CG face, and it's animatable completely. You can animate it by texture, by text to speech or audio or anything.
So it sounds like a deep fake is like using whiteout and writing over it. It sounds like, right? It's like cut and paste a little bit. But the AI generated, obviously you said it's a little bit more. Now, we gave you a photo of me, and you did an AI generation, and you did it in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I wish you'd given me a little more hair. So literally, we gave you the highest. We did not give you a 4K resolution, for what it's worth.
Right. Right.
So, how would you advise somebody to be able to figure out, well, what's fake there? I mean, obviously, I know it's fake with the hairline and all of that.
Well, it's still up in the air. As far as how you detect whether that's a deep fake or a fake.
Are you putting watermarks in? Are you guys thinking about this yet? Or no?
We're thinking about it for sure. I mean, we're a research lab, so we're developing computer vision research lab at USC, funded by the Army mainly, and our main focus is research and publications. So we're sort of, for the greater good, generating knowledge in the topic, and we're putting together these really amazing, capabilities. Right. All the other parts of those is not really our department. So.
And how long did that take?
It took. By the time they got it, it took a couple of hours actually.
So literally in a couple of hours, you could generate. With the right type of equipment, you can generate essentially a fake human.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Travis, you're about to make a movie with a fake human.
Yes,
James Dean. Look, you have the rights to this and all of that. Why do you think this is a good idea?
We're a digital rights management agency, so we work with a lot of historical iconic estates. And in working with the James Dean estate, who my business partner Mark Rosler from CMG Worldwide has represented the family for 40 years, it's been the desire on behalf of the family to extend the legacy of James Dean, inspire future generations, essentially. And so in those conversations with the estate and with the family, we had the desire to work with them to extend that legacy through different mediums, whether it's film or virtual reality or experiential content for the future. And over the course of time, we've had a number of film studios that have reached out to us about doing James Dean feature films, and it was always a conversation of hiring a big celebrity talent to play that part.
Sure.
And it's only been recently, with all the innovation, evolution, this technology, that we felt like creating the digital human of James Dean was the ultimate path in doing that.
Yeah. So how are you doing it? Is it just all of his, every on-screen role is put into sort of one data set, a data pool, if you will, and your AI James Dean pulls from that pool?
To some extent, it's a lot of the copyright images and video assets that we have, that the family has and controls. Call it the source material. So it starts there. It starts with aggregating all that source material, running it through machine learning to create that base model. And then you have a lot of other types of innovation that you would apply to it. So if you...
But this is James Dean, whatever role he played. I mean, what's interesting here to me, and this is sort of where I'm sort of stuck on AI humans, is that you're not getting the essence of who he actually was. You don't have the thoughts that were going through his head then, do you?
No, we don't.
Right.
No, we don't. But we have the family, which we try to make it as authentic as possible. We do everything in an ethical and responsible way as much as we can in working with the family.
What does that mean?
Leveraging books, leveraging a lot of the copyrighted material, just the family's consent, working with them to make it as solid as we possibly can. And it's a combination, like I said, of different types of innovations, motion capture if we're worrying about the body, voice synthesis if it's worried about the voice. If we find people that have different, because James Dean passed away 67 years ago, so we're limited to assets that existed a long time, just like you getting your deep fake or your digital human created with a video that wasn't 4K, but you do have 4K videos that Kathleen could have used. We're very limited with the material, the source material that we have.
What's interesting here is, I want to put up this quote from Keanu Reeves. He is clearly going to try to, he doesn't want people to use his image for this, he said. What's frustrating about that is you lose your agency. When you give a performance in a film, you know you're going to be edited, but you're participating in that. If you go into deep fake land, it has none of your points of view. That's scary. And then he added, it's also fascination. It seems for us, the animals on the planet, like how do we defeat death? And you said Robin Williams also actually put in his will he did not want to have his image used after death. So more actors are thinking about this, huh?
Yeah, more actors are thinking about it. Robin Williams put in his will 25 years, rights of publicity. Nobody could use his rights of publicity since the date of death. So essentially he's protected himself through including this language in his will.
Do we need if you don't specifically put it there, are other dead actors just sort of up for grabs?
Not necessarily. I still think you need to go through the right channels to secure the rights of publicity agreements and licensing deals with those estates to leverage a lot of the copyright material that it takes to create base modeling. But to some extent, yes, there are the bad apples out there that could leverage a lot of the existing IP that's on the internet to create a digital human of somebody else.
Kathleen, what are your ethical guardrails?
Well, mine in the lab, we have to adhere to our sponsors and deliver very specifically milestones and tasks.
Your sponsor in this case being the Department of Defense?
Army is sponsor, basically. So, ethics, though it certainly comes up, and it's a concern along with all the wonderful, amazing, cool things that it can do. I think you have to have a full conversation about it. Our lab doesn't... we don't make constraints based on ethics. We also don't transition it out into the world like, currently, project by project we will.
I've had some people who are like really upset at Microsoft, blaming them for for putting it to the public before everybody was ready.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that too. Absolutely. But I will say this about the content itself, and I don't think James Dean is maybe the candidate, but there's such a digital footprint that we all have now, and future, I don't know how many years everything's moving so exponentially quickly. It's very possible that you could gather a lot of data on any individual person with all the photos and the contracts and the letters and the emails and everything. An AI-based system would actually be able to pull out a personality from.
You really believe they could, huh?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, Ray Kurzweil did that with his father to a certain extent as a test about 6 years ago.
Think of John Adams. You think if we put all the letters that John Adams wrote, which created a terrific book, that you could create AI John Adams?
I think so. I think you could have now I say conversational AI. Yeah. So you could make the system, and you could have a conversation, and it could be pretty immersive.
You gave me another rationale that said, hey, better that the good guys are first than the bad guys are first. And on one hand, I get that. On the other hand, is having an AI arms race a good idea?
I think the cat's out of the bag. It's just an AI arms race.
I
don't know who's good and who's bad.
No sense ringing your hands anymore.
Well, I think that smart people need to get together from all walks, whether it be government or scholars or others, and come up with constraints and regulation in something. Yes, I do.
Travis, are you convinced the public wants to see dead actors?
I do. I feel like I wouldn't call them dead actors, but I think they're icons of the past reimagined in a new frontier. I wouldn't necessarily use terms like dead actors essentially, but I think there's a desire to, as I mentioned earlier, just inspire the future generations by leveraging this technology.
I have to tell you, it's scary and exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not going to lie, I'm intrigued, and I'm not sure I should be.
Oh, it's intriguing.
So I'll admit
it's
that.
Wonderful,
but,
yeah.
I appreciate both of you. Travis, Kathleen, thank you.
Thank
For
you.
more on all the ethics of all this new AI technology, take a listen to the latest episode of the Chuck Toddcast. I spoke with sociologist Chasey Reese-Anthus, co-founder of the Sentence Institute. And next week, join us back here for our deep dive into the U.S. and China race to Mars. I'll see you then. And of course, this Sunday on Meet the Press.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.